We just thought it would be easier if you stayed home, my son said, as casually as if he were asking me to pick up milk on the way back, not quietly deciding my place in his life. Mark stood in my kitchen outside Columbus, leaning against the counter like it belonged to him, arms folded over the same faded college sweatshirt he wore every weekend. Jenna sat at the table with her palms flat on the wood I had refinished myself years ago, smiling a careful, practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Lily hunched over her phone, pretending not to listen, though I saw her shoulders tense every time my name came up. Easier, I repeated, keeping my voice even. Easier for who? For everyone, Jenna said quickly, the words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed them on the drive over. The flight is really long, Nora. Hawaii is beautiful, but the travel is a lot. We just don't want you to be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. The word landed softly but left a mark. As if I hadn't sat through freezing Little League games or driven a car with no air conditioning through July traffic to watch school plays. As if I hadn't spent decades bending myself into whatever shape made life easier for them. Mark nodded, eyes drifting toward the dog bed by the back door. And someone needs to watch Max in the house, he added. We trust you more than a neighbor or sitter. You're dependable. Dependable? It sounded like praise, but it felt like a shove. Dependable meant I would say yes, swallow the ache, and water their plants while they watch sunsets without me. So you've already decided, I said. My coffee sat cold on the table, untouched. I wrapped my hands around the mug anyway, needing something solid. It's not like that, Mom, Mark said, genuinely surprised I wasn't smiling along. We just figured the time difference, the walking, the flight. You're 70 now, it's a lot. There it was. Not we want you with us. Not how can we make this work. Just the quiet conclusion that I was too old, too fragile, too inconvenient. Jenna leaned forward, voice gentle. You always say you like your routine. This way you won't have to stress. We'll send pictures every day and Lily can video call you from the beach. Right, Lil? Lily looked up, guilt flashing for a moment before she forced a smile. Yeah, Grandma. We'll call you a lot. It'll be like you're there. Like you're there, as if I were something decorative, something to be checked in on, not someone who might want sand under her own feet. Every word was wrapped in concern and practicality, but the message underneath was clear. I wasn't needed. I was useful. I nodded and said, I understand, because that's what dependable mothers do. They don't argue. They don't admit how resentment rises, slow and heavy in their chest. When they left, Mark hugged me quickly, already thinking about flights and hotels. Jenna thanked me twice for helping them out, as if this were a favor, not an exclusion. Lily hugged me tighter and whispered, I wish you were coming. Then they drove off. I watched the taillights disappear, Max settling at my feet, and felt strangely hollow. The next morning, I walked to the mailbox in my robe, the air cool, the sky just lightening. My knees ached a little, like always, but I managed just fine. Inside the box sat a thick white envelope with the airline's logo, addressed to Mark but delivered to my house. Of course, I thought. At the table, I opened it and slid out 3 crisp pages, 3 tickets, Honolulu, Mark Arthur, Jenna Arthur, Lily Arthur. I traced their names, feeling a steady heat rise in my chest. They had talked about this trip for months at my table, using my chairs, my coffee, never once imagining me there. Their dream had never included me. The confirmation number sat at the top of the page like a key. I breathed slowly, listening to the clock tick and Max snore in the corner. Then I picked up the phone. My hands were steady as I read the code to the airline representative. Every word from yesterday echoed in my head. Easier, uncomfortable, dependable, 70. I'd like to cancel this reservation, I said. She warned me about fees and asked if I was sure. Each time she said, your trip to Honolulu, something sharp twisted inside me. It was never my trip. Yes, I said, I'm sure. When the call ended, the kitchen felt different, clearer. I folded the tickets and placed them in the drawer with my important papers. Then I opened my laptop. Flights from Columbus, Charleston, Santa Fe, Seattle. Places I'd told myself were for other people. Younger people, braver people, someday had just become today. As my own confirmation flashed on the screen, warmth spread through my chest. They had reduced me to a house sitter with a smile. Maybe they always would. But for the first time in a long while, I chose myself. Quietly, firmly, without asking permission. By the time the plane touched down in Charleston and I followed the crowd through the airport, it hit me that I had really left Ohio. My legs were stiff and my back ached a little, but I was the one pulling my carry-on, reading the signs, finding the taxi line. There was no son rushing ahead without looking back, no careful voice explaining what I could or couldn't handle. It was just me and the quiet truth that I had gotten here on my own. The cab driver asked if I was visiting family. When I said no, just seeing the city, he smiled in the rearview mirror. "Good for you," he said. "Most people talk about doing that and never do." The words landed deeper than he knew. Mark and Jenna had never said "good for you" when I wanted something for myself. Their approval came only when I made things easier for them. That brief kindness showed me how little encouragement I'd been given. The inn in the historic district was small and clean, with worn wooden floors and a narrow staircase. The clerk looked up with an easy smile. "Welcome? Checking in?" "Yes," I said, giving my name. He typed, then glanced up. "4 nights, Miss Arthurs. Traveling alone?" The question tightened something in my chest. I heard it in Mark's voice instead. "Are you traveling alone?" As if it meant I shouldn't be. The clerk didn't mean it that way, but my mind still went there. I nodded. "Yes, just me." "Nice," he said simply. "Most things are within walking distance. Let us know if you need anything." No hesitation, no careful look like I might break. He marked the waterfront on a small map and handed me my key. That ordinary kindness made me realize how low my expectations had fallen. My own family had taught me to expect limits, not support. In my room, I set my suitcase on the stand and sat on the edge of the bed. Outside the window, trees framed an old brick wall. The room smelled faintly clean with something sweet drifting up from the street. I thought about Hawaii, about Mark explaining that the walking would be too much. The memory still stung. Here, in a place I'd reached by ignoring that judgment, his words felt smaller. Later, I walked beneath live oaks, their branches stretching overhead like a tunnel. My steps were slow but steady. Each time my knees complained, Mark's voice echoed, "You're 70 now. It's a lot." A quiet anger rose. Yes, I was 70, and I was here, moving forward, not sitting in his house waiting for pictures on a phone. At a diner, I ordered shrimp and grits and sat by the window. The waitress called me Han and asked if I was enjoying my visit. When I told her it was my first real trip alone, her face lit up. "That's brave," she said. "Brave, not burdensome, not too old, not better if you stay home." Every casual word from strangers showed me how different my family's tone had been. Their worry hadn't been care. It had been control wrapped in concern. The next morning at breakfast, I carried my plate to a corner table. A woman about my age sat nearby. Short gray hair, sharp eyes, clothes that looked comfortable and intentional. She smiled. "You here on your own too?" The question tightened my chest again, but her tone was warm. "Yes," I said. "First time." "I'm Diane," she said. "Chicago, retired teacher. My kids think I'm reckless for traveling alone, but if I wait for them, I'll never go anywhere." I laughed softly. Her kids sounded like mine. "Nora," I said. "Ohio. My family didn't say it like that, but they thought it was better if I stayed home." "Of course they did," she said calmly. "It's easier for them that way." Easier. Hearing it out loud without excuses sharpened something inside me. It wasn't my imagination. People preferred me quiet, useful, close by. As we talked about plans, Diane asked what I wanted to see, not what I could manage. She didn't slow her speech or treat me like I needed supervision. She talked to me like an equal. With every normal, respectful question, the gap between this and the way Mark and Jenna had treated me grew clearer. Their careful tones and decisions for my own good felt, in comparison, like a soft wall built to keep me in place. Sitting there with my coffee and a fresh map of the city, I felt the resentment still burning under my ribs. But now, it wasn't just anger. It was understanding. I was finally seeing how much I had accepted and how different my life could be when I chose my own steps. The train into New Orleans rolled past wide stretches of water and old trees, but I watched my faint reflection in the window instead of the view. Diane sat across from me with a paperback in her hands, her foot tapping to a rhythm only she could hear. My phone lay dark on the small table between us. I knew it was full of messages. I had turned the sound off hours ago, but I could still hear Mark's voice in my head. When we stepped off the train into the thick, warm air, that familiar mix of freedom and unease settled in. I was far from Ohio, far from the kitchen where they had told me I was too old. And yet my son could still reach into my pocket with every text, every missed call, every voicemail where my name was said carefully, like I might shatter. The hotel was modest and clean, a few blocks from the busy streets. The clerk handed us our keys and a paper map. "Lots of music tonight," he said. "You picked a good weekend." "We did," Diane said, smiling at me. "We did," I agreed, though my eyes drifted back to my phone. In the elevator, the screen lit up. 3 new notifications. I didn't open them. In the room, I finally sat on the edge of the bed and unlocked the phone. The messages lined up immediately. "Mom, call me." "This isn't funny." "We got to the airport and they said the reservation was canceled." Another followed. "Did you cancel the trip? Please tell me you didn't do something like that." Something like that. Not concern, not curiosity, just blame, wrapped in disbelief. My anger flared, sharp and sudden, tangled with grief. They hadn't wondered if I was okay. They'd gone straight to assuming I'd caused a problem. Jenna's message came next, longer and calmer. "Nora, this is serious. We saved for this trip. The agent says someone called from your number. If this is a misunderstanding, we can fix it. If you were confused or tired, we need to know." Confused. Tired. Those words hurt more than the accusation. She hadn't asked what happened. She'd reached for the version of me she preferred. An older woman who needed watching. Someone who couldn't make decisions on her own. I could have called then. I could have reminded them of Lily's braces, the first car, the grocery money, the weekends I handed over savings so they wouldn't worry. I had paid for so much of their life, and when they planned something big, they still told me to stay home. The unfairness made my vision blur. Instead, I let the phone rest in my hand and stayed silent. Not because I was weak, but because I needed the quiet. I wasn't going to shout into the receiver like someone out of control. I let them sit with their questions. Music and laughter drifted in from the street below. Diane knocked softly. "You coming?" she asked. "There's a little jazz place nearby." "In a minute," I said. After she left, I opened the small notebook I'd bought in Charleston. I wrote the date, then began a list. Times I watched Lily so they could go out. Times I cleaned their kitchen while they slept. Times I gave them money and said, "Don't worry about paying me back." Each line carried a picture. Each picture carried a quiet cost. My phone buzzed again. Lily. "Grandma, where are you?" "Mom is freaking out. Dad's really upset. Did something happen?" Her message was different. No blame, just worry. That difference hurt too. I typed slowly. "I'm safe, sweetheart. I'm traveling. I needed time for myself." A pause. Then, "Are you mad at them?" I thought of the years ago when Mark and Jenna asked me to move in for a while after my husband died. I paid half the groceries, cooked most meals, slept in the smallest room. When they were ready for space again, they said gently it would be better for everyone if I left. Better for them, just like now. "Yes," I typed, then erased it. Instead, "I'm hurt." I felt pushed aside. "I'll explain later." In Santa Fe days later, walking past bright galleries in the dry air, more messages waited. "Mark, I don't understand what you're doing. We counted on you." That line made my resentment spike. They counted on me when it meant sacrifice. They never counted on me enough to offer me a seat. Jenna tried again. "We love you. We just wanted to make things simple. Please tell us where you are. Simple. Easier." Those words circled everything they said. Simple meant I stayed ready and silent. Standing at a desert overlook with Diane, the sky wide above me, I finally saw how small that box had been. I didn't answer them. That night, I sent one message to Lily. One day, you might have to choose yourself too. It doesn't mean you love anyone less. As I set the phone down, something settled inside me. I was still angry. Their words still echoed, but now my silence had weight. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing, mile by mile, who I would be when I stopped living only where I was needed. Seattle greeted us with gray clouds and air that smelled like rain and salt. Diane and I rolled our suitcases out of the station and into a cab, and for a while I just watched the water appear and disappear between buildings. Ferries moved across the bay, steady and unhurried. They seemed to know exactly where they were going. I was only just beginning to feel that way myself. Our hotel was simple but comfortable, a short walk from the waterfront. At the front desk, the clerk checked us in without questions or concern. No one asked if I was up for it, or if this was too much. That phrase had become a trigger for me. Every time someone said too much, I heard Mark again. "You're 70 now, it's a lot." He had turned my age into a limitation instead of a fact, and every ordinary kindness from strangers reminded me how small they had tried to make my world. In the room, I set my bag down and pulled back the curtains. The bay stretched wide and gray, ferries carving clean lines through the water. My phone buzzed almost on cue. I already knew who it was before I picked it up. Mark had sent another long message. "Mom, this has gone way too far. We were worried sick. You disappeared." Do you have any idea how that feels? My jaw tightened. Worried sick. Disappeared. As if I had slipped away without reason. I remembered sitting in my kitchen while he calmly explained that I should stay home, like it was a simple favor. They had pushed me out of their plans, and now he spoke as if I had vanished on purpose. The unfairness of it almost made me laugh. Another line followed. "We counted on you. Lily is upset. Jenna is trying not to cry. This isn't like you. We counted on you." That phrase burned. They counted on me when it meant feeding the dog, folding laundry, filling gaps in their budget. They had never counted on me as someone they wanted beside them. Only as support, and "this isn't like you" sounded less like concern and more like a complaint that I had stepped out of my assigned role. Then Jenna's message appeared. "Nora, we love you, but what you did hurt us. We feel betrayed. You could have talked to us. We would have worked something out. Please call. We deserve an explanation. We deserve." My chest tightened. They deserved explanations, but I hadn't deserved a real invitation. Or a conversation before decisions were made. They had sat in my kitchen, using my time and my table, and told me the plan was already settled. No room for my wishes, no room for compromise. Every word she wrote turned them into victims of a choice they had started. I slid the phone into my pocket. "I'm going for a walk," I told Diane. "Bench by the water," she said. "Good place to think." Outside, the air was cool and damp. I walked slowly to the waterfront and sat on an empty bench facing the bay. Seagulls cried overhead. Water tapped softly against the shore. When I pulled my phone out again, my hand shook just a little. For a moment, I imagined calling and letting everything spill out. The nights I stayed up with Lily, the money I handed over without question, the way I felt when he told me to stay home for my own good. All that anger pressed against my ribs. Instead, I pressed record. "Mark," I said quietly, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "It's me. I'm safe. I'm traveling." I paused. "I know you're upset, but you need to hear this. I am not your backup plan anymore." The bay stayed calm in front of me. "I love you. I love Lily. That hasn't changed. But I'm not going to sit in a house waiting for you to need something. I won't be the person who handles everything so you can enjoy the fun parts. If you want me in your lives, it has to be as someone with her own plans." I thought of Jenna's words. "You say you deserve an explanation," I continued. "Here it is. When you planned that trip and told me I was too old to go, you chose my place. Now I'm choosing mine. I won't explain it over and over just to make you comfortable. This is my life too." I stopped the recording, listened once, then sent it. No long text, no apology, just my voice. I waited for guilt to hit. It didn't. What I felt instead was relief. They would be angry. They would say things that hurt. But I had spoken without shouting. I had chosen dignity over silence. That night, Diane and I found a small bar with a live band. The room was loud and warm, full of laughter. I ordered one beer and raised the glass. "To finally saying it," Diane said. When the band started a steady song, she pulled me toward the floor. "One dance," she said. "We're not made of glass." I hesitated, then moved with her. My knees reminded me of every year I had lived, but I danced anyway. I could almost hear Mark warning me I'd get tired. Instead of shrinking, I felt something stubborn and bright. I was tired, yes, but I was happy. Not useful, not dependable, just myself. Later, walking back by the water, my phone buzzed again. I didn't look. For once, the sound of my own footsteps mattered more than whatever waited on that screen. When the plane touched down in Ohio and I stepped into the familiar airport, it felt like I was walking back into my old life with a new spine. The gray sky beyond the glass looked the same as it always had. I didn't. My suitcase felt lighter than it should have, as if I'd left more than clothes behind. I met Lily at a small coffee shop near my house the next afternoon. She was already there, fingers wrapped around a paper cup, eyes flicking to the door every time it opened. When she saw me, she stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Grandma," she said, her voice breaking. She hugged me tightly, like she was afraid I might vanish again. I held her for a moment, breathing in her shampoo, thinking of all the nights I'd rocked her to sleep so her parents could rest. When we sat down, she took a breath. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, "for not saying more, for not seeing it." Her words landed in a tender place. My resentment had never been meant for her, but hearing "not seeing it" reminded me how invisible I'd been, even to the people who loved me. "You don't owe me an apology," I said gently. "You didn't tell me to stay home and watch the house." She looked down. "Dad says you scared them. Mom says you overreacted. They keep saying they were just trying to protect you." She shook her head. "It doesn't sound right when they say it." "Protect you." My jaw tightened. They hadn't protected me when I was scrubbing their kitchen late at night or dragging myself through errands while sick. They had protected their plans and comfort. That word had always meant control. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think..." She hesitated. "I think they liked having you on standby, and they didn't want to admit it." The honesty stung and soothed at the same time. My resentment sharpened again, but not toward her. She was only just learning what they had modeled for years. That evening, I drove to their house. Same neat lawns, same quiet street. My stomach twisted when I saw the porch. The last time I stood there, I'd been holding a casserole and a list of errands. Mark opened the door. "Hey, Mom," he said, stepping aside. Jenna stood in the kitchen, wiping counters that were already clean. "Oh, hi, Nora," she said, offering that careful smile. "You look good." Good, as in better than expected. The compliment felt thin. We sat at the table. Dinner was simple. No one had asked me to bring anything, and I was grateful my hands were empty. Mark cleared his throat. "We wanted to talk, to say we're sorry." His eyes drifted away. "We were hurt. The trip meant a lot to us. It felt like you pulled the rug out from under us." Hurt. We. Us. My resentment rose. He spoke as if my feelings had only begun with the canceled tickets, as if I hadn't been pushed aside first. Jenna leaned forward. "We really thought we were doing what was best. We worried about the flight. We didn't think you'd even want to go. Maybe we should have asked more." She sighed. "When you left, it felt like you chose an adventure over your family." That burned, as if they hadn't chosen a vacation over me, as if wanting something for myself after years of giving was selfish. "I did choose," I said evenly. "I chose not to be the person who only exists when you need help. I chose not to sit at home waiting for pictures. That doesn't mean I stopped loving you." They were quiet. Mark stared at his plate. "Your father would have been proud of you," I added softly. "He always wanted me to travel." Mark nodded once, eyes damp. "I read what you sent Lily," he said. "It hurt." "Good," I said. He looked up, startled. "Not to punish you, but so you'd feel even a piece of what I've carried." The silence that followed was heavy, but honest. For once I didn't rush to fill it. When I stood to leave, I pulled a folded paper from my bag and slid it across the table. Mark opened it, confusion turning to shock. A photocopy of the Hawaii tickets. "I keep the originals at home," I said quietly, not to gloat, to remember how easy it was for you to make plans without me. Jenna swallowed. "Are we gonna be okay?" I heard the real question underneath. "Are you coming back to the role we preferred?" "We'll see," I said. "That depends on whether you see me as more than help." Outside, the cool air met my face as I walked to my car. Back in my own house, the quiet felt different now. Not lonely, spacious. I poured tea and sat at my table, writing one last line in my notebook. I will not apologize for having a life, and I thought of everyone who had ever been told they were too old, too much, or better off staying home. And knew this ending wasn't just mine.